Shadowverse.
Greetings, I'm Shad.
And greetings, I am Tyranth.
And today we are looking at the swords from Lord of the Rings.
And the Hobbit.
And the Hobbit. We're throwing the Hobbit in there because there's actually some cool swords in there. Not Rings of Power. Because Rings of Power is not Lord of the Rings. I refuse. It is rejected. No.
Fair enough.
Even though actually there is... Okay, so the sword designs, there is an okay sword design here and there.
Okay. Sorry,
But it doesn't... I don't care. Because I don't care about Rings
I just
of
thought we were doing Lord of the Rings, and then all of a sudden you're just like, and we're not doing... I'm prepared for that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, it's just that's the standard, like, understanding. When you think of Lord of the Rings, you just don't include Rings of Power. It's not Lord of the Rings.
That's true. The reason why we're looking at Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is because there's actually some really good designs in there, some stuff that I personally love, and that you like as well.
Yeah, some of the best sword designs in all of fantasy, and so we want to look at some of the most prominent ones, the most classic ones, explain why we like them, try and rate them, but here's the issue. It's like trying to say what's better, arming sword or long sword.
Yeah, there is some, personal preference on what designs you personally would like.
Long sword or bastard sword,
But we can also look at some of the functionality of them, how they would perform if they're realistic.
And we have some of the replicas here that we can look at, though the replicas don't do justice because they're made to be wall hangers, so they're not made to be functional.
Right.
The weight's
well,
wrong.
we do have a good example of a functional versus the wall.
We do, actually. And so it's going to be hard to try and rate them against other swords, which is better than the other ones. We will be taking magic out of the picture in terms of how good is the sword.
Yep.
This is more looking at the design. And which sword should we start? You know what I think we should start with?
What?
The Ranger sword.
Go for it.
Aragon's Ranger sword, which we do have a fairly weathered replica here, but we got it.
I like it. Like, there's nothing too special about it. It's just a really solid design.
Like, I would not call it fully plain. For instance, let me grab one of our long swords and compare like a completely plain long sword to the Ranger sword. So this is the Baylor Arms Alexandrian longsword. Okay.
18C. Beautiful, beautiful.
Gorgeous sword. The thing that really makes it stand out and distinctive is the width of the blade. But taking away the blade, look at it's got a very standard, basic, no adorned crossguard.
See, that's what I'm saying. Is like
pummel.
there's nothing too special about it, but that's not a negative thing either.
There are actual additional flares I love about the Ranger sword, like the little gold lines on the crossguard. The crossguard see how it sweeps out on the sides?
Yeah.
That's a little bit more atypical, like out of the ordinary. This central ridge that they added on top of it changes it up a bit. The spacer is metal. Yeah. It's a flare that adds look to it. The pummel has some gold lines on it. They're subtle, but it lifts it in its design that I appreciate it and think of it as higher than just... And look, I love plain sometimes. This is a gorgeous sword, but that one actually goes higher.
I love it. I personally don't like the design of this pommel. I'd probably put just a little bit of a different one. It's not a knock or anything. It's just personal preference on that. But in terms of functionality, how it wields, it's all good.
It's flawless, basically. This one isn't a functional one. It's a wall hanger. Yeah, but you could easily make this 100% functional. And it's 10 out of 10. Yeah. What else could you give it, right? Yeah. And so, absolutely beautiful.
I've got nothing against it.
The next one, I guess I want to... How about we do this? We'll do the ones that are seen probably earliest in Lord of the Rings trilogy or most prominent. Okay. And then we'll get to some of the cool swords that don't get enough attention and the lesser known ones. So the next one really should be then Anduril.
Yeah. Now, I love it.
I love it.
10 out of 10.
I love it.
My only critique of it, which isn't even a critique, it's just a personal preference, is to make that leather handle a little bit longer.
My only thing is I'm not sold on the half metal
that's what I mean.
grip. I think that I think it would actually look nicer if it was black and then had the flared pummel.
The reason why I say this is because if you actually look at Gandalf's sword, I think it's called Glamdring. It actually has it's very similar design, just has a longer leather handle.
But everything else I love. It's small, but see how these flare out at the ends, right? Then it has this gold inlay with a small little space on the inside.
Which is the same as the pommel.
Same with the pommel. It has it, and that mirrors consistency in design, which I think is gorgeous.
What I really like about this design, if I could show here at the handle, is this kind of what would you call it? A hexagon? Not a hexagonal. Diamond cross section that they have on the handle, and then they have the ridges the same, and then the crossguard flares out to have that diamond cross section as well. I think that's beautiful.
Beautiful. Like, if you look at it on profile, I'm not sure if you can see, but there are these kind of points. It flares out there, flares on the side, which kind of makes it a little wider, but because of the angle, doesn't add the extra weight.
You know what I think would make this even better?
What?
If it had a diamond cross section blade. And it had a thick boy, like the 18C.
Oh, okay.
I think that would look amazing.
Yeah. I love that it's on the longer end. This is basically a war sword. It's over the standard size of longsword, which I think suits it beautifully for a real battlefield kind of sword. Yeah. This is easy 10 out of 10 again. This is just so gorgeous.
Now that I think about it, that's the only thing that I actually think I would change. Apart from, because I really like the hand-on crossguard, but this blade is very plain.
Here's the thing. Ranger sword, I wouldn't change a thing. And there is that one point of actual more objective potential criticism is having the bladed. I guess if it was actually hollow, it could be solid. And you could make it functional. You could make it in such a way that it wouldn't affect the functionality, and so that would bring it back to 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10 sword. Beautiful. All right, so the next one is Glamdring. Eventually, I'm going to be getting all the replicas.
We currently don't have all the Lord of the Rings sword replicas. It'd be nice to have them, but...
And by the way, these replicas, the Ranger Sword and Andruil, United Cutlery. Yeah. United Cutlery, we have an affiliate link to some of their functional stuff as well, but United Cutlery, they can make some really nice stuff. All right.
This is my favourite of the long sword type swords. So we've got the Ranger Sword, we've got things like Boromir's sword, we've got things like Andruil, all that. Gandalf's is my favourite.
You might have a point. I love leaf blades. We do not see them enough.
It's very
on
subtle,
swords, but it's there and it's gorgeous. And
not only that, I do like the pommel. It's got that longer handle, like I said, and I like the crossguard as well.
The crossguard, like my favorite type of crossguards are ones that come into a point. That's what I like about the Ranger Sword. It's Andruil has it, but Glamdring has the nicest, most kind of consistent one. Something that I love about this blade here. It has a tiny ricasso. Yep. It's in two small little loops. Yep. It adds a flare to the blade, which matches the kind of flowing lines of the leaf blade. This is such an elegant and gorgeous design. You're right. This might be my favorite.
Yeah.
Out of all, and all the swords are 10 out of 10. This is almost like
not all of them.
I mean, the ones we've been sharing so far.
The ones we've been sharing so far, yeah.
In terms, if we're still rating what we think is the favourites out of them all, I'm trying to figure out what I like better, what I think is better, Ranger Sword or Andruil. Andruil has more flares, artistic embellishments that raises it, yet I think the Ranger Sword is more functional.
I think that... Oh, come on. I think they're both equally as functional. There's not really...
I would put Andruil above the Ranger Sword, and then I would put Glamdring... It would be Glamdring, Andruil, Ranger Sword. That's where we have them.
Because, currently, I don't think there's anything about any of these swords, if they were properly made and not wall hangers, that I think would be, make them not functional. I think that would be perfectly functional. It would just come down to more personal tastes on stuff.
Yeah, but still, we're trying to give a rating list, and that's where we're at the moment. Glamdring, Andruil, Ranger Sword. Okay, so the next one that appears now, this is going to be an interesting discussion, Sting. The next most prominent sword in Lord of the Rings is Sting. Now, is it a sword? It's a sword in Frodo's hands.
Yes.
And they mentioned that, but for a regular-sized person, it's a dagger.
I was going to say, dagger. Yeah.
The replicas, do they make the replica the size as it would be to Frodo or the size it would be to a person?
I think they make it to a person.
I think they make it to Frodo. I can't remember. Because look at Frodo holding it. I think that's the size of Sting when you buy it. And it should actually be half that size.
Yes, they make it more... proportional
to Frodo, because in reality, this is it's a dagger.
Yeah,
I mean,
So if we're going to... Let's say it's a short sword, okay? Let's just say for us normal-sized people.
So what? It's the size... We're hobbits in the size.
Yeah.
All right. This might be unpopular. There are some elements of the design I'm not a fan of.
Really? Because you love short swords and you don't stop talking about it. I thought you would like this.
I'm not a fan of the leaf design of the handle. I don't think that really adds too much. Okay? And
I don't like the crossguard thing.
I don't like how the pattern of the crossguard, they then push it to the blade, and I don't... Like, I love etching on a blade if it's within the lines of the blade.
Yeah.
Because this literally crosses over the lines of the blade, it throws off of my OCD, and I'm just like...
There is another example of this that does annoy me. We'll get to in a minute. In terms of this one, if it was, short sword length, I like the blade. The blade's really nice.
It's a perfectly functional sword. Yeah. It's 10 out of 10 with its just balance and size and weight. Like, if it's the size of a sword to a hobbit, if it dagger to a person, it's a functional dagger. It's a 10 out of 10 for the design, but it's not as, useful as in combat as the larger swords. But there are elements in it of the design I'm not a fan of, actually.
I can agree with that, but I don't want to knock it just for my personal preference.
This is personal preference. I love the leaf blade on it.
Yeah.
Friggin' love leaf blades. And it's interesting because it seems like they give the elven swords leaf blades. And because Glamdring is an elven sword, ancient elven sword.
Well, they all are. This is the thing, right? This is the weird thing.
Anduril... Not really.
They're all made by Elven, but for some reason, the elves themselves, what they carry, is far more single-edged stuff.
Because, I think it's dependent on period. But we saw the single-edged when they fought Sauron, but I think the swords further back are more leaf-bladed.
Maybe, because from the point of the War of the Ring up to Lord of the Rings, they're still using those single-edged sort of designs.
Curves, so... Yeah, that might, upset some people, but Sting would be the bottom of the list, and I think there's a couple of swords that would go above it for me at the moment.
It also depends on if you wanted a shorter sword, which I personally wouldn't.
Yeah, but I can't really knock it for its functionality. That's
what I mean, yeah.
And
in terms of functionality for what it is, it's perfectly functional.
But in terms of the rating, what we like, because that's all we can really do. Because if they're all 10 out of 10s, the only way to really say which is better is now personal preference, what we like. Yeah. That's all we can really do.
I can knock this one just because if you put, he is fighting orcs. They're fighting orcs, which have full-size weapons. So you can knock it there.
But it was made to be a dagger. That's it. That's canonical in the books.
If they use it as a sword against other swords... Sorry.
I guess, yeah. You have a point. And so that would knock it down,
Just because you pair that against a normal sword, you're
All right. We are considering The Hobbit.
Yes.
Okay. And the next most prominent sword, because this sword was found with Glamdring and Sting, technically, and it's one of the more prominent swords of the Lord of the Rings franchise. We're looking at Orcrist.
I like it.
I actually love Orcrist.
Oh, do you? I was expecting you to say you don't like it. I don't know. I was expecting you to say you didn't like it. I love it.
Okay. It does have the design crossing over the lines of the sword.
I said, we'll get to another one.
I am more forgiving of that because this is already an asymmetrical design.
Yeah.
And it doesn't throw off my OCD as much.
I love it. It's very...
I love it. It's you know why I like it? It's a falchion.
I was going to say, but it's such a... It's got that massive flare that I really like. And also that bevel comes up for 90% of the blade. It's very aesthetic.
Look at how chunky that sword would chop, and it would do business, right?
I was going to say, I don't know about the handle.
Not a fan of the pommel and how it sweeps back.
Yeah.
You kind of want to, if a handle is going to sweep in any direction, usually forward. But it's not hugely pronounced.
Yeah, it's very subtle. And it looks like they tried to make the pommel kind of line up with it a bit to compensate. So I like it.
I love it. Functionality, I think it's still 10 out of 10. And I love that it's a falchion. And I think it's better than Sting by a long measure, but I don't think it beats out the other. I don't think it beats Ranger, Andruil, or Glamdring.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, but Orcrist comes in fourth, but still gorgeous. Okay, so now we're coming to some of the more unknown swords. Though I would say the next most prevalently seen sword are the Uruk-Hai swords.
Are they even swords though? You know.
They are. They are. Okay. They're chonky choppers.
Okay. All right. So.
Not elegant, not fancy, but they just are. They're an orc sword.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what to say about them because they are deadly. They will get the job done, but there's nothing nice about them. There's nothing, you know.
More functional than Sting.
Yes, only because it's longer though.
Yeah.
But you pair that against like a longsword.
Oh yeah, not better than a longsword.
They've got no guards. They have that the point at the end. I'm not going to knock that point just because that would be so useful.
That's an armor piercing point, right? That's actually
you can hook onto things,
adds a decent amount of, and it's not outside the realms of history. There are some old school falchion designs that end with a forward pacing point purely for armor penetration, and so I give that extra points, and as a result, is it better than Orcrist? Not in terms of prettiness, but functionality. That's a tough one.
Because it's basically a right-angled point, which could be used
as a real
straight. You know, the problem is how much force could you generate in one hand? But then we have the added question: how much stronger are orcs than humans? So
I think you could fit an extra hand, or just even over. The grip.
If you look here, that handle points one way, meaning when you flip it around to use the other way, it would be uncomfortable.
True. Reverse strikes.
Oh, yes, that would.
You could get a lot of power with them still.
Unarmed for an armored opponent.
Backhanded strikes. I think that's still functional even in a regular grip.
I agree, but if I was to get the maximum amount of efficiency, you would want to just swing it straight that way.
I think this might. I can't decide. It's so because it's got benefits and negatives. It's about equivalent to Orcrist in my mind.
I would still put Orcrist a little bit higher because I think that's a little stubbier.
Yeah, and I think that it's clear that the orc swords are not as well balanced. They're chunky,
they're just
heavy
pieces
choppers.
of steel, mass-produced.
Yeah, but they are more functional than Sting. And look, this is the functional rating. Is it a 10 out of 10 sword? Almost for what it's meant to be.
What the
Uruk-Hai sword?
Oh yeah,
I mean.
for what it is, I could agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you think is the next most prominent sword that appears in Hobbit and Lord of the Rings? We've missed one because this is more prominent than the Uruk-Hai sword, Boromir's sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say Boromir. I'm not a fan.
What?
I'm not that into it. I'm not that into it.
How dare you?
I didn't say it wasn't functional.
We have a functional Boromir sword.
I didn't say it wasn't functional. I just said I'm not that into it.
Oh,
I just don't like it. The design.
What?
I love the blade. I just don't like that pommel and shorter crossguard. I feel like there's too much blade compared to everything else.
I've never been a huge fan of the twists, but they're not excessive, and so I actually think they pull it off. It has the central point. It's got a wider. This is basically a somewhat variant functional Boromir sword, effectively. Yep. And I love this sword.
I love the blade. I love the blade profile. All of that. I just don't like the handle proportional to the blade, personally.
But
I hate that counterbalance. I hate the balancing on that one. You love it. I hate it.
I'm shocked and offended.
I much prefer like a straight crossguard in this, or if it's going to have a bend, maybe make it longer. I just think it's too stubby.
See, I think
that doesn't affect its functionality.
All right,
That's purely
all right. Now, where does it go on our list?
It's nowhere near these top three.
Nah, come on. It's equivalent to Aragorn's Ranger Sword. Functionality, design, and beauty. It actually has more flares, technically, because of the twisting on the
Isn't that
cross.
longer, so you have more reach, so less functional?
This is made to be used with a shield. It balances out. Yeah. This is just as functional with how its intended use.
I wish you didn't say that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I can't really figure out what's better. They're equivalent.
Wise, I'm fine with it because it's just a personal
It's
preference.
a 10 out of 10 sword.
Yeah.
I can't decide which is better between this and the Ranger Sword. They're about equivalent. I can't really.
Why are you asking me? Yeah. I don't like it.
Boromir Sword is that's on the same one as the Ranger Sword. Okay, now we get to the ones that are less well known, but we do see it decently enough. This is the Elven Warrior sword.
The High Elven Warrior sword. Yeah, so you barely see this.
But it gets you prominently see it.
So
the line of Elven Warriors just slashing up with them.
It's seen at the start of the films, and it's also seen when they're at Helm's Deep as well. It's kind of a background character one. I love this sword. I can't say it because I have to censor it, but this sword, that's terrible. Yeah, this one. That blade is absolutely gorgeous. And this curved handle with this like maroon and that gold leaf.
I'm not a fan of the leaves. It's the same thing as Sting, the asymmetrical kind of. It looks like it's just a print leaf. I like indented grips better, that you can see them.
Now keep in mind, it has a bit of a false edge on the back as well. Yeah. So you kind of have both. And it's very large as well. It's a lot, like if you actually look how big it is, we've got a big handle and a big long blade, but you can wield it, if you're strong enough, in one or two hands. I love it. This is my favorite design in Lord of the Rings.
And it's on that, is it a sword, is it a polearm thing? It's technically a polearm.
Is it a glaive?
I wouldn't call it a glaive, but here is a closer up version. It is just such a beastie chopper. The leverage you'd get with that. I am actually not a fan of these leaves.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like the leaves on the handle. The pommel I'm okay with. I love the shape. It curves forward and back, and it's got those lines. Yeah, look, there's a lot to love about it. It's not my favorite, though.
I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 for functionality.
Because I was thinking about not giving it a 10 for function.
But, personally, it's my favorite of all of them. Yeah. I love it. But
if it does not have a 10 on functionality, it's technically on the lowest. All of the others got a 10 on functionality.
I would put it at an 8.
Yeah.
Because that's
I'll give it a 9. Yeah. Because it has that extra leverage, and people might say that makes it more functional in the chop, but less versatile.
Yeah.
And in an actual combat thing, a more versatile sword is a superior sword. Its reach is somewhat limited if you're holding it near the hilt, but you could choke it down a bit.
What did we give the Uruk-Hai sword? Because it's above that. I'll say.
Would you give it? Because the Uruk-Hai, we gave it 10 out of 10 for its function, but actually, because of its weight, we should probably. But Sting's functionality. Okay, we were saying 10 out of 10 for Sting, but that's as a dagger. If it has a weapon and the size...
As your main primary...
its actual functionality, because it's so small, would be closer to a 7.
Yeah, it's... yeah.
All right, let's give Sting a functionality score of 7. Uruk-Hai, then...
Because of the weight?
8. I'll give Uruk-Hai an 8. Actually, no, the weight really throws it. It's kind of on a 7 as well.
Okay.
And then Orcrist, I would give an 8. And then this one, I'm happy to give a 9.
Yeah.
Okay. High Elven Warrior Sword is a 9 on functionality, because it looks beastly, but it just has some limitations. Okay. We should, look, Legolas's daggers aren't swords, they're daggers. We're looking at the swords.
Yeah. And he uses a bow more primarily, so I'm fine with,
But we will look at Elrond's sword.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't like it.
I
don't like it.
I thought I liked it, then I took a closer look.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I'm not a fan of the handle. It's got the printed leaf on it. I'm not a fan of the pommel.
I don't know what this is.
I do not like what the heck is it doing with its blade? Yeah. It has a reverse edge on the bottom end, and then it goes flat, and then it has a blunted end in parallel. What the heck is this?
I have no idea. I don't like it.
This is dumb.
In terms of functionality.
Oh, this lets me down.
In terms of functionality, you have to give it because it still would. It's a chop. It would chop,
but it's got some dumb designs. I think we could knock it down a point just on its. There's some incredulity.
I'd put it with Sting. Put it with Sting.
Yeah, let's chuck it like so. Elrond's sword is a 7.
Yeah.
Give that a 7.
Did you want to have a look at Thranduil's?
Okay. That's better. Yeah, we'll give some more Hobbit swords some love.
I like it.
I think I like it too.
I've never been a fan of, like, I love in terms of the design of having a full metal handle, but in practice, it's less functional.
It's chunky. It's got some size to it.
Yeah.
Could it be full metal?
The handle.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I actually don't mind the hilt.
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, how it kind of just pokes out and it's really a stopper to stop it sliding down. The handle is full metal by the look of it. That knocks it down a point in functionality.
Yeah.
But what I love? I love that the pattern stays in line with the lines of the sword.
That's fair.
That's okay. I do like it. I think it's on a 9 though.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And we will add Thranduil's sword right here. Thranduil sword. Okay. So I think these swords need some more love because
I love them. I love the design of them. I love the dwarven aesthetic in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. It's such a good, especially that one.
The Hobbit dwarf swords. This one looks like it's a foam spatch, so the blade is too thick on that one. Is there shots from the films? I can see that's because that is the one that we see in the films more often. Yeah. And I love it. I think it's great. It's got the flares out a little bit towards the tip, making it more chunky. And look, there's a Keeley, Thorin. But if we're looking at the Keeley style sword,
it's very, I would say, Viking-esque.
Yeah, but even like this one that has that, it
looks like a sax.
Yeah, like a big sax bladed sword. And
one I do like. So if you go back to, I think. I love that.
Balin sword.
It's like a mace sword. That's cool.
They're cool. Like I think the standard one, Keeley, because when they go to the mount, what was the name of the kingdom?
The Lonely Mountain.
The Lonely Mountain, Erebor, right? Where they get the dwarven kind of standard militia swords. They're of the Keeley style blade. I remember from the film, and they were functional and thin. I remember looking like they were able to swing those around pretty effectively, and I love the design. Is that what they are? Is that the ones that they get from the Lonely Mountain?
That one's a bit.
I still love it. I love. They got.
It's just one of those things where if you added a big crossguard on this, made that a longer handle, it'd be
you're
one
right.
of my favorite things ever.
The only thing I'm missing really is the crossguard, but in terms of how they just got. They're on the shorter end, which justifies their chunkiness, and that flaring out at the tip would add some real bite to the cut. They're like 8 or 10. Sorry, 8 or 9.
I'm fine with that. I'm just saying, like, if I was personally designing that sword in real life, I'd put a crossguard on it, make that handle a little longer, make the blade a little longer, because they're for
better or worse than High Elven sword. I think they're about the same as Orcrist.
Yeah,
they're about the same as Orcrist, honestly. So. Let's put it. Orcrist is an 8, so I was thinking 8 or 9, and so there we go. Those are the ones that came to my mind that I wanted to look at. We've an extra one thrown in there, and we have Glamdring at the top. Gorgeous, 10 out of 10. Anduril close second. Ranger sword, High Elven Warrior sword is a BC sword. Thranduil sword, surprising. Pretty contender came in there. Orcrist.
I'm so surprised that you like Orcrist like me. I don't know why. I don't know. I just expected you not to like it.
I love Orcrist.
I don't know why. I just did.
It's a falchion, man. I love falchions. Dwarven swords come in there with Orcrist. Then we have the Uruk-Hai sword, which is just a beastly, deadly sword. Sting gets knocked like this.
Because it's not a sword.
It's not really a sword, and there's some design elements I don't like. And the loser... as I think it deserves, because it is bonkers, is Elrond's sword.
Yeah.
But still, the Lord of the Rings swords they're the gold standard in fantasy.
Yeah, they're very beautiful designs. I like so many of the movie ones. There are some ones that we didn't mention that I'm just not a fan of, and I think it's the Sword of Rohan, maybe. I'll pull it up.
Oh, okay. The King's sword.
Yeah, I don't like that sword.
Okay, it depends which one. I'm not a fan of this one. The too much of the hilt.
That's the one. That's the same one. That's the one they're using.
But this one I love. That's Eowyn sword, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that there is the sword of the king.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. But by the way, there's actually historical designs that are close to that.
I just said I don't like it.
I'm not a fan of the design.
Yeah.
But we should add it in. Look, we're Sword of Rohan. What would we get? What would we put it? Better than Sting, not as good as the Dwarven, but it's about functionality. I'd still give it like an 8, but just to design, I'm not. So these are 8s.
Yeah.
But the one that I think is actually got far more to it, Eowyn sword. I love Eowyn sword. See how it flares out towards the hilt? Oh, mwah! And it's got like an Anglo-Saxon pummel. No, this sword is gorgeous.
I'm just not a fan of swords with stubby handles.
No, like it's a Viking style where you rip your hand into. No, that's your personal preference because that is still fully functional.
I didn't say it wasn't functional.
This is 10 out of 10. This is easy. Like there is nothing objective to criticize about this sword, and then it has such beautiful elements to it. This is 10 out of 10. So it's definitely 10 out of 10, which puts it in the range of Ranger and Boromir sword.
But see, Boromir's sword, while I don't personally like it, it's super duper functional.
Okay, so you reckon just under Boromir, and so Eowyn's sword is, but it's still a 10. But I could say it's has, because I love Boromir's sword. Boromir's sword actually has more of a functional handle.
Yes,
it's got more.
I'm never going to agree that a sword with a crossguard is the same as a sword without a crossguard. They're just not the same.
Point. All right, and so this is the final list then. We have Glamdring at the top with 10, Andruil 10, Ranger sword 10, Boromir sword 10, Eowyn sword 10, High Elven Warrior sword 9, Thranduil sword 9, Orcrist 8, Dwarven swords generally, but the more classic Dwarven sword 8. Sword of Rohan
is an 8.
Is an 8. Is an 8. Uruk-Hai sword 7, Sting 7, and I'm putting Elrond down to 6 because that is bonkers.
Yeah. I guess that's all of them. That's all of
beautiful.
Them. These are, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of functionality stuff here, but there's also our personal taste in some things. You know, like Sting is at 7. It's not a bad design by any means. It's just personally, it's less
functional in combat, though. I think that's a more objective thing, but yeah.
Like the Elrond one, I don't know what's going on.
They lost the plot with that one.
So, which is crazy because everything else is so good.
So good.
Anyways, do you want to finish this
Yeah,
out?
I mean, love Lord of the Rings swords. Absolutely gorgeous. And look, if you want to see us review this sword, which is basically Boromir's sword, right? It is surprising. I love this sword, and it can do some crazy stuff, and we have abused it so much. But you can check out the review right there, and hope to see you there.
Till next time.
Farewell.